I'm Connor, this is Rupert, and you're watching Political Science Theater 2000. Okay, so before we jump into today's video, I need to explain something. It's long, and it's long on purpose. Later on, when I make other videos, I'm gonna reference this one. In fact, that might be how you got here. So buckle up, because I'm about to pour information down your neck. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. Today, we've got a fun lesson on politics. We're going to discuss the difference between a political system, an economic system, and a social system. Yeah, learning! You see, politicians like to use trigger words to scare or anger people into voting for them. They often use words incorrectly, and unless you're educated on what that word means, you might end up hating something you don't need to for no fucking reason at all. Okay, let's start off with a basic set of definitions. A political system is how a government is selected and organized, how laws are written and enforced, and who makes all those decisions. That's a political system. An economic system is how a political system manages money. Okay? And then a social system is the social construct your society lives under. So, we have a political system, an economic system, and a social system. And that's what makes up every single country on this planet, regardless. Okay, now that we got that simple thing, let's talk about political systems. Our first political system today that we're going to discuss is monarchy. A good example of a modern-day monarchy is Saudi Arabia, but we'll come back to that. Monarchies work really fast. No red tape and no bureaucracy. Why? Because one person is making all the decisions. It's like playing SimCity with no computer and human lives. Monarchy has two inherent problems though. The first is, who becomes the next monarch? And the second is, what do we do with a bad monarch? So the pros of monarchy is, there is no corrupt government, just a corrupt monarch. Seriously, there's just one corrupt person that you have to deal with. It makes complaining a lot easier. But of course, you might also get burned at the stake or executed for complaining, so about that. The real pro of monarchy is the speed at which things get done. A single monarch can eliminate debt, balance the budget, pass better laws, and end all foreign wars. But that literally just never happens. The cons of monarchy are pretty much everything. After monarchy, we have to discuss direct democracy, something you probably know nothing about because you've never lived in an actual democracy. Direct democracy is a system where every citizen votes on everything. Every law, every rule, every tax, and everything else. If that sounds like it would take a lot of your time, you're right. It basically takes up all your fucking time, which is why we don't do it. Who had a direct democracy? Athens. Yeah, the Greeks. They must have had a good system, right? Well, as it turns out, Athenian direct democracy, as in most democracies, only citizens could vote. The problem is, only land-owning men were eligible for citizenship. That was less than a third of the population. Another third was women and, well, you know, women couldn't vote. And the other third of the population was, you guessed it, slaves. Well, foreigners also fall into this category, but still, how can you spend all your time voting if you have to work? You can't. That's why land-owning male citizens didn't work in Athens. They spent all day voting while women oversaw the business that slaves and foreigners worked. So yeah, fuck direct democracy. Extra fuck direct democracy. But humans decided that democracy was a halfway decent idea, so they decided to come up with different forms of it. And that's what we really need to discuss. All of the following are Republican forms of democracy, so we need to understand that term. A Republican democracy is when citizens vote for a representative who then votes on laws for them. That's what you live in now, unless you live in North Korea, or one Middle East country that I won't name, or whatever country makes all your decisions for you without elected representation. Anyway, here are the types of democracy most used around the planet today. You have a communist democracy, which is a single political party type of democracy. And yes, it's actually a democracy, surprise, surprise. You have electoral democracy, which is like an American democracy, which is also considered a liberal democracy. But electoral democracies and liberal democracies are not always the same thing, and I'll explain that later. Then you have parliamentary democracies like England or India. However, these are often representative as dominant party democracies like in Israel, and to be honest, India now too, because the smaller parties need to form coalition governments to actually have a government, which is a problem. And then we have conservative democracies like Turkey. And I can throw some commentary in here, but I'll just go ahead and save that for later. Now, don't get me wrong. There's lots of other democracies and variants of democracies out there. Some of those less discussed would be totalitarian democracies, which is where people can vote, but basically have no voice about what their government then does. Like if you vote for a leader, but then every day he comes to your house to take a shit. Because he can do that. Anyway, then there's the Soviet democracies, the system that actually crashed the Soviet Union. This is where local representatives are elected into councils or Soviets, that's in their language. And then those local councils elect regional councils or larger Soviets who elect the country's larger councils and eventually leadership. Like a Russian doll, except... No, wait, it's exactly like a Russian doll. Got it, okay. And last but not least, theocracies. Basically, a religious government run by the head of a religion. The Pope would be a good example of that. Iranian democracy has sprinkles of theocracy in it over its parliamentary democracy, but we'll come back to that again later. Okay, so now that we're done with that, that's a lot of shit to learn, and it's way more complicated than that, but I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. You really have two types of economic systems, and I can pretty much promise you've never lived in either one of them. Unless you live in North Korea, or that one Middle East country with a king. The first is socialism. The second is capitalism. And that's it. Both of these in their pure form can be really, really bad. And the truth is, you've never lived in an entirely pure socialist system or an entirely pure capitalist system. Trust me, you just haven't. Think about it like this. In a pure socialist economy, everyone works, because everyone kind of has to work. Everyone makes the same amount of money, no matter what they do, and the government provides everything for everyone. Basically, if you work the drive-thru at McDonald's, you make the same amount of money as Bill Gates or the president. But you also never have to worry about food because you have a food card and can eat whatever, whenever, and you have a house and a car and insurance and clothes, all paid for by the state because you give them 100% of your paycheck. Randy Jackson will probably say no on this, dog. The other extreme is pure capitalism. When you own nothing except what you make, buy, build, or earn. Sounds great, except that's pretty fucked up too. In pure capitalism, there are no police, only private bodyguards. There are no streets, only toll roads. There are no firefighters, only fire consultants. Sure, there are no taxes. You get to keep 100% of what you earn. But there is no free school, no guaranteed education, no welfare of any kind, which is fine if you have rich parents, but kind of sucks if you're anyone else. What do you do between jobs? Who fucking cares? Get a job, you lazy bastard. And what if there are no jobs? Who fucking cares? Get a job, you lazy bastard. So what do you live in? Something in the middle. 100% of the argument and debate of economic systems comes from where you want to be on the scale between socialist and capitalist. For example, in the US, we offer all children kindergarten through 12th grade. Our taxes pay for it. Some people think we should include college. Some people think our taxes shouldn't pay for K through 12 school. So we argue. Some people say we pay cops too much. Some say we don't pay our police enough. Some people don't want to vote for new roads. And sometimes companies build those roads anyway and charge people to drive on them. Basically, in America, we live somewhere in the middle between socialism and capitalism. And there's nothing wrong with that. Basically, socialism is a safety net that protects you from being homeless or hungry the further up the scale you go. Capitalism is the game of risk. But you can win big or lose big. You won't get rich in socialism, but your neighbor will always have health care. Your neighbor won't always have health care or a job in capitalism, but if they default on their home loan, you can buy it in foreclosure and then rent it back to them for a profit. The last thing we have to discuss now is our third system, the social system, which has nothing to do with our political system or our economic system. Totally not confusing. Here we have liberal and conservative. This is a sliding scale too. Like the previous system, except on one side you have conservative, which is very strict, and oftentimes religious laws regarding social behavior. And the other side is liberal, and is basically do whatever you want. Liberals are often pro-equal gay rights, pro-gender equality, including equal pay and health care. Conservatives are often against those things, sometimes stating religious reasons and sometimes stating moral reasons. So you see, you can mix and match these things and get the mixture you want. You can be capitalist and communist at the same time. You can be socialist and have a liberal democracy. But you can also have a conservative democracy that's capitalist, or a communist and socialist while being socially liberal and conservative while having a theocracy if you want. Don't worry. We're going to go deep on each one of these issues later, and I just wanted to give you a quick breakdown of the three systems that govern politics. Hopefully you're not completely lost, but if you are, I'm not surprised. That's a lot of shit to think about. Anyway, I'm gonna go not do drugs or drink because politics is just too fucking exciting. Okay, bye! Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video, everybody. What I need you to do right now is make sure you like the video. If you haven't already, subscribe, click on notifications, and if you have any friends that you think would find this informative or useful, make sure you send it out to them. I'm going to see you guys next time, everyone, and thank you for watching.